Hi, Shirley here. How you going? A lovely painting today of, hopefully it's a lovely painting of a photograph we took in Prague. If you're seeing this video, then it was okay. So it's a great shot, people backlit, shadows coming forward, and the flare of the sun at the top. It was beautiful. We had good weather. It was what time of year was it? September, October. So it was getting cold, but it was still sunny and people were out and about, lots of tourists. So I'll get started. Underneath this video you can see my materials and the paints I use. And if you'd like to like and subscribe at some stage during the video, that'd be great. Okay. I'll turn the camera. Just sometimes we have the odd blowfly come in, sometimes the dog comes in and barks, so just be prepared for a few shock sounds. I'll try and edit them out if they're too bad. But on the whole, it's a bit of a warts and all type of recording session. Now, I'll just put the paints away for the moment. That's, by the way, that is a palette that I have that I buy from my local art supply called the Art Scene in West Ryde in Sydney. I'll put a link to them. And this is a great little palette. It's less than $20, I'm sure. And I normally, when it breaks, I normally tape it up with some gaffer tape. But I really like the fact that it divides into two, and it makes it really convenient to paint a palette like that. In fact, when I get around to it one day, I might make a palette like that and see if I can produce one. Anyway, that said, I shall start sketching, and I'll just pause a bit while I sharpen my pencil. Not quite sharp enough. I'll leave my photograph there for reference for when I'm working, but if by chance it falls out of the screen, I will put a little version of it up in the corner, but I'll try and just have that sitting there and you can see what I'm looking at the same size, so to speak, and see the comparison. Just to get the centre, get me started on a drawing, I do like to mark the centre, and if I've roughly printed it out on a full page, this is close enough for me because I'm not sure that the proportions of this page, this is squatter, this page is longer and thinner, so I just want to get a centre point, and at the moment it's just at that, I'd say the hip of that man, just roughly down that halfway that way, using fingers, halfway that way, round about there's my centre. The size of the figure, so I'm going from his hip to his head down to his legs. Head's a bit shorter than the legs, but I have to decide how small to make these figures. This one is, if I go like, measure it like 1, 2, or half. Okay. One other way is to put the drawing across like that and go, okay, I'm going to stick to roughly this, maybe a little bit bigger, so there's his head, top of his head there, I'll go up there, bottom of his foot there, if I run it across, I'll go down there. Okay, I might use that as a guide. So that means that's his head. By the way, when you're drawing figures, and you're working from photographs, try and keep their heads a bit smaller than what you see in the photograph. Believe it or not, it tends to look more adult. If you make the head big, it will tend to be a bit childish. It looks like a child. So I'm just drawing these figures very roughly. I might come back to them. The shadow does not need to be put in completely at this stage because you really want that fresh and loose. This girl has got a bag. She's sort of joining onto him. He's got his arm out, but she's close enough to be bag in front. She's smiling, which is nice, but I won't bother putting the smile in. I won't have it. Probably no facial features at all. She's a bit in front of him, but back legs are going out that way, and the front legs going this way. It's sort of an awkward little pose. It's like as if she's flat-footed. Anyway, it's enough detail there. Coming across, all the people's heads at the background are the same height, and that would have been the same as my eye height, roughly, all the adults, looking about the same. Interesting looking gentleman here with his hands in his pocket and his head down. He's obviously having a think as he walks. His shoulders are at the same height as this chap. So I'll just put his head down. I love that. I love the way he's walking. Maybe a tummy, jacket like that, hand in pockets, one leg straight under him. I'm going too close. I think I have, now that I look at that. I think I should give it a bit more of a gap there because there's a lot going on behind. Much as I like him, he's a little bit fighting for these now that I think about it. So I might reduce him in size. His head's going to be the same spot, but he's going to be taken back. So I'll just at this stage, I won't go too much detail. Leg bent, leg down. Arm like that, eyes down. Lady beside, she's looking in the shops, I bet. Can't quite see what her legs are doing, so I'll have to make that up. I just do that when I have to make something up. I just shape them in. A lot of people like to do their legs separate really wide, like this. I've noticed. Alvaro, people like that. That's their, they do these real big fat men with wide feet, wide legs like that. I'm more a shape, I like to do, still do the barrel in the middle, but I tend to like to cross legs over like that. Sort of a ballet look. Not quite, but anyway, he's got a great shadow now that I look at that. Wow, look at that. So I'll just give the direction. Beautiful cobblestones here, unbelievable. You've got your both sizes, little, they would have been originals, I bet, the tiny little ones, and these ones are much more recent. But that's it. I won't worry about that too much at this stage. That's all very pale. Interesting. It'll be an interesting challenge for me to know which ones to do first. So more people back there, someone there. Someone there. Not very often I come across a photograph like this that's just right. Often I have to cut and paste a few figures in. But this has got everyone. This has got even got little people back here. I'm not saying I'll put them in, but it's fantastic. So above their heads is some sort of an awning shape. Above that girl's head going up, so I'll go from her up a little ways, and then I'm coming this way up, whereas down here the shapes are going that way. That's the perspective. In fact, what I might do at this stage is just pop in that bottom of the building there, and looking like at the back of his is the archway. That way. Now there's a building edge there. Oh yes, there's something else I wanted to say. When you have photographs of buildings, sometimes when you're looking up, this one luckily I'm looking straight down, the lens was big enough to accept that scene. Sometimes when you look up, the buildings converge inwards, and therefore you need to straighten your verticals out when you're doing that. I think unless you want to, use that as a design element. If you don't want it to be distracting, make all your verticals as straight as you can. In this case, I didn't have to, but sometimes I have to go into Photoshop and pull the corners out, and in Photoshop you can do that. Everyone should, by the way. If you don't have Photoshop, get it. Pay the money, it's worth it. If you're an artist, you just need it for so many reasons. It's the way of the future. Now, and I haven't been able to find anything that does the job. All the GIMP, all the cheaper versions, they're not so good. Now I'm going to half close my eyes and try and get a feel for how high that building should be. I'm going to put it about there. It's got a fabulous little roof on it. Actually, that's a straight line. And there's a gable and Cape Coddy thing behind. There's a chimney there. There's a chimney there. Straight down line here. I'll put that straight in. Up. Now that's on a bit of an angle, so there's little windows back there. Look at this fabulous little light right there. Couldn't pick a better spot for it really. It's framed by that roof behind. Okay, that's back there. Now all the way up to looking at this girl's around about her shoulder is where I have to stop that building up there, and then I come down to around about the middle, wherever my middle mark was. So pick up the building, continue on. Obviously there's it's a veranda, opening going in there. I'll try and keep this accurate. It's very foreshortened, so it's going to be a little bit of a hit and miss affair. And it looks fairly modern. It's got some straight lines going like that. In fact, that one goes all the way up there. So this thing is wrong, and to tell you the truth, it's so fuzzed out up there that I'll probably take it away. Lighten that up. Now, this is an archway, which is a little bit awkward, but that's it, I'll still have it in. I have to draw lines down the edge here. Put my finger there like that and run it down. That way you get a parallel line to the edge. Hold your pencil firm and just slide it down the page like that. You'll end up with a fairly parallel line. And if I go further out like that, I'm going to do the same there. Probably just as good freehanding it, but never mind. Just below her front foot, actually it's just behind her front foot, is the bottom of that wall. So, like there's another figure there, but I won't put them in. What I will do is put the other side of the wall here in, because I'm sure that would have been in there. Now, over there, I think I've got enough sketched in here now to make that look fairly convincing. So, right at that middle point, which is now dropped, this middle point there, there's the feet of those people over there, so that's how small they are. And there's just got to try and work out what's happening here with this. If that's the Little archways back there. Okay, so this one up here has three main windows. I'll see how I go with those. Just a bit of traditional. This one here, believe it or not, it's about the same height, but it's a little bit different. Right. Now I've got this beautiful shadow, not too much. Interesting, that shadow there, I wonder if that is from that light. It's a bit of a puzzle, probably is. Anyway, I'll start painting. That's enough for the drawing. I don't rub it out. Once upon a time I used to. Tour de France paintings I rubbed out, but these I tend to just leave that pencil mark there, and I find there's enough paint on it, this just disappears after you've been painting. Now, that said, I'm going to leave the sky white. I'm going to leave areas here white, and I'll probably start with a loose warmish wash over here, and then a blue area down the front. I'm thinking that might be a blue tint. So I'm going to start with a nice big brush. I rub it away, put the other brushes away, as hard as I can with those. I often leave what I've used the day before in my pans, just in case I'm looking for a dirty colour to start with, and I can use that in the next painting rather than clean it up and make it all pristine. I'm going to put some water down here. Just putting wetness on the page at the moment, clear water there and there, because, in fact, I might put it all the way across. Okay, I've wet, it's a dog. I've wet the page now. I don't know if you can see that in the light. I'll just move it around a little bit so you can see how wet it is. So this side is bluer than this side. This is slightly warmer. But I'll start with a bit of colour, very faint, coming down there. This is going to be the top reflected areas of, this is going to be the lightest of the bricks. This side I'm going to do nothing up there, that's totally white. Here just patches. So this is burnt umber basically, down here. I'm being very careful not to over darken to start with. I want a little bit of colour in, but nothing too strong. I'll go to a warm, I'll leave that to dry, but in the meantime I can start working up the top. I'm going to go to a very faint colour on this. I might even try and put those flares in now while I'm doing this initial edges. Just leave a little bit of white there that might be useful later on. Burnt umber and a little bit of cad orange, I think that is. Right, the names of the paints I probably won't get right while I'm talking. I tend to just say red, yellow, because my mind is not on the actual technical name of the colour. That's it. There's a very interesting, very light reflected light off something, and I might just try and leave that. Coming down to some yellows. Back here, there's yellow there. Funny feeling it might be. The other side I'm going to be doing, that looks like a green building. I'm doing a very dull colour green. Tiny bit of, so kind of, a bit of, while I'm here, I know I said, where's the colour chart? I've got a colour chart somewhere. Here it is. I printed it out. I don't know where the original's gone. Perylene green, green apatite, genuine, undersea green. They're the three greens I have here. I don't have a sap green, but I call it a sap green. But anyway, here we go. Now I stopped painting there for a bit now. Just going to go back in here and wet this edge. I want that to be very, very soft. Knowing how dark I'm going to be making these buildings, quite happy for this colour here to be fairly, not totally washed out. I wouldn't say it was strong, but certainly not. It's not as pale as it will end up being. Just going to put some orange on that one. You see already, could have gone to the bit of trouble to have left that light blue for those windows, but I'm not quite sure where they're going to be, where they're either going to be in the shot. So I won't bother at this stage with fiddling with those. And then this red. It's a good start to the colours. To pale there. These little white sections here, a purist would leave them, would work really carefully around them, but for the likes of myself, I won't do that. I'll just quickly go over them later with gouache. It's a choice I make, and you know what? It's a swap between the freedom to just get stuck in and put your brush marks down. I know it's a great skill to be able to predict and leave areas white, but I don't value it that highly. So I'm just picking out local colour. It's yellow buildings and purpley red roofs. I've made that a little bit more purple. I wanted it cooler down there. Lovely combination of this orange. I'm letting that just blend in. I love that where yellow, orange blends with purple. Complementary colours, that means opposite colours. They look great together. So I'll come down behind that person. Coming in quite dark there, but I'll deal with them later. Let's see, I can leave a few white spots there. Okay, now I've got ultramarine blue and burnt umber mixed up, which is a lovely neutral grey. I'll bring that down into some of these people to just give them the beginning of shapes. While it's wet, it's good to get these shapes finalised. I'll definitely go over this guy's head later. So I'm letting these colours go black up into the, this is the dark grey colour that I've mixed up with the blue and the brown together. Just letting it float around in the wetness. And I'll come in later with much stronger edges when it's drier. Quite dark there. Oops. Plaque on the wall. Okay, some shadows there. While that's still a bit wet, I'll put some of the shapes for the windows. They have very ornate little, I don't know what you call that. They're not lintels, but they're shapes above the windows. Of course, you've got your plumbing always. Put that there. Touch of using the very thin edge of my brush here now. Basically, just doing a little bit of drawing. Now, just a stronger, slightly stronger colour here because it's in there. Back there. I'll go back into that roof, give it a touch of richness with the purple. So little bits of detail here and there, just starting off with trying to get a variety of tones in and colours. Makes it interesting. Very curious little shapes there. I'll just leave them as they are, as little shapes. I'll grab some of that grey, pop that in there right now. Pull that back out again and then out that way. That's going to be straight down before the paper gets too wet. Okay. I'll just run over that some of those spots I don't want to drip. I'll just take them up like a little suction machine, this paintbrush. Goes to such a fine point. It's really worth the expense of buying these. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to be half closing my eyes and looking at how much darker I need to make this to get to that scene. I could start now with some of the figures while I'm waiting for the rest of it to... What I'm doing is waiting for this to dry so I can go in with some darker shades. Everything's layered, so the first layer is there as a background, sitting there permanently. The next layer goes on top and that changes the first layer a little bit, and you'll see as I build it up, it gets, I get the darkness I want and hopefully maintain a bit of a glimpse through to these underlayers so you can see all the shades, all the different colours that I've used. One thing I like to do is mix up a little bit of a flesh tone so I can start working on a couple of faces. Burnt sienna is my choice for face, for skin, regardless of race. I'll do it pale for white skinned people and darker if I need to for dark skin. This is winter, these people are all in. I'll just put a face over there. I'm not putting any detail. The faces don't have details in my paintings normally. Unless, of course, it's a portrait. You have to put it in then. Okay. That's a blue outfit for him, but it's so dark a blue that it's hardly worth calling blue. But that said, I'll start with it. Just using my brush as a sort of a drawing tool. I could make it a bit brighter. I could add the turquoisey look that he's got there. Neutral coloured trousers. Going for full strength here. I'm hoping that this would be great if this does hold. Usually what happens is they don't. My strong colours fade, so I'll just like that. She has black on, so I'll see how I go getting a very dark shade. Got black pants. They're figures against the white background. I don't have to worry about blending them into anyone else. That back leg is right out there, very awkward. But anyway, that's the way it is. She's got some nice scarves on there, so I'll just put those in. Or I'll leave a space for them to go in later, put it that way. Now, while I've got the dark colour mixed, I'm going to add a little bit at the behind there for the different people that are walking there. Not all the heads are dark heads, a lot of grey hairs, and of course the light is hitting them as well, so I'll put some blues. I'm doing both blues and browns back there. I'll keep it off the shoulders of this couple in the front. Okay. I'll just stop there for a minute and soak those up. Check my camera gear. Okay, I'll just let that sit for a touch, not very long. Take something off his foot. I'm thinking here what I might do over this side, just so that I don't lose this chap. Just going to put his leg down at this stage. And put his shadow in a little bit. One shadow, one leg, and there's the other leg. They kind of meet up about there. Just putting that in roughly. And from that point of view, I might do these ones a bit roughly too. It gives me a bit of a composition idea. There's one leg, his other foot is up in the air, then it joins together. I'm using a nice, the ultramarine blue with the burnt umber here to, actually I might just add a little bit of purple and try and get a nice little start to that shadow. Even if I only just do a little bit of an outline at this stage. Now I'll just sort of loosen that up a bit. Really don't want that to be in any way tight. Okay. Got some fun things to do now. I could put in a little bit of a pattern while that's wet. I'll put a little bit of the pattern of the bricks, and this obviously it's a very, very, very dark colour. You just have to pick whatever your favourite way of creating dark. You can do my favourite, which is burnt umber and French ultramarine, or you might want to do a purple and a burnt sienna. So what I'm going to do here is just a little bit of brick pattern, just to give a feel for it. I'm going to run it into here. That goes down like that. These are a little bit like this. Something I can do later. Don't need to do it now. I guess you could say I'm testing the waters to see what it looks like running into this wetness here and then coming out into the dry area. These bricks, you know, the line of the bricks kind of that way. Might even try. They're not even lined up, these little cobblestones. They're sort of very much random. Very old, obviously. I'm going to try that as a hint to start with, and I'll come back to that later if it needs to be made any more than what that is, just a hint. What I'm very keen to do now is to darken this whole area here, all this here. But I'm a bit worried, it's still a bit too, I need it to go very, very, very dry. So I might I'll get fresh water and I'll get the hairdryer out and dry that off. I want it really dry so I don't lose those paint marks that I've already put in. Just checking to see that you're getting the full. Okay, alrighty, now I'm just going to turn that a little bit on an angle so you can see it better. Now I'm going to, I didn't get my fresh water. Okay, hang on. I have a paint here called Moon Glow, which is carbazole purple and a bit of black added. So that's what it seems like. Moon Glow is quite a dull purple. I love it. So what I want to do is put this purple wash over here, and hopefully the warmth of that orange that I've already put on there will hold. I'll just make a lot of it. When you're going to do a large wash, you really do need to build up a lot of colour. So now, half close my eyes. I need it very pale here, but I want it to go really dark around, and darker as it gets down. So now what I'll start with is, I'll clean my brush off and I'll start with water at the top. The best way for me to do that is to wet up there. I start with that being wet. Now I'm going to start adding in my stronger wash, and it will start to darken as I come down the page and across the page. To do a proper wash, you build up a bead of water like this and you work it backwards and forwards across the page. That's the traditional wash. We used to do them in art school. You try and keep it horizontal because you don't want it to run down the page like what that was about to do. So I'm going to bring it down to horizontal. I'm going to do backwards and forwards. I'm going to keep adding into this wash so that it darkens as it comes down. Normally I'd fast forward this and you wouldn't get the feeling, you wouldn't get the feel for how a delicate operation it is. So the whole idea is you don't want any streaks. A wash is an area of paint that has no evidence of brush marks or tide marks, which is another way of describing when it dries out a little bit. So you keep that bead working away, a bead of liquid paint and water coming down. I'm ignoring the drawing behind as far as perspective goes. I'm just keeping this wash going. And I have a horrible feeling I might be going to run out of the strength colour. So I'll quickly make up some more. I'll put that in. As long as you do it fast, you don't let that bead sit there for too long. All the way down. And I really want that colour to get stronger as it gets down the hill. Down the page. Go back there. A little bit of water, a bit more. Hopefully making it stronger. As I come down to the people, I'll have to pause and go around a few heads. Just double check to see where those heads are. I'll make them up if I can't see them, obviously. This wonderful man, I'll just go around him. Go around those figures. Good lady wife, just missing her. There is actually another gentleman over there in the shadows, but I probably won't have him in. It's too hard to. Just on this couple here, I'll just go behind them. I'll worry about their shapes later. Just try and get this background in nice and dark. A few little shapes there on the ground. I'm basically working with moon glow now. Oops. She's actually half dark herself. It's hard to tell her figure. So there. Do a bit of dry brush there. Okay. I've almost succeeded. I'll see how it looks in a minute. Little shapes there that need to be defined. And once again, dark in the background there, underneath that awning. This is a weird awning. It's got two triangles and the middle part lifts, but I won't put all that detailing. Once again, fiddle around with the people at the back there. While it's wet, you can still add bits to it like this. Now I'm going to just work out that path like that. Back here you cannot see, you can't really see the horizontal, you see a few of the vertical like that. See a little, the straight ones that line up with your eye. Okay. Interesting to see how that dries, but I think I have managed to keep most of the colours intact that I was hoping to. Just give that guy a bit more. Darken out his front. I'll come back in later with her clothing, but I can darken her out now. Join them across. people behind can start to go darker. That's very dark. I'll just do some burnt umber in with that moon glow. See what I get there. Okay. Now, that's that side half done. That'll start to pale up now. It won't stay that dark. I've got a little bit of detail behind here which I'd love to capture, and it's almost pastel colours. Very pale. Chimney. 1, 2. I'll join it all together and blend it in. Just trying to keep that light there, white. It's my only bit of traditional work. So I'll bring it down. So I'm putting a wash over the whole area here. I'll only do it, to tell the truth, I just need a bit more of a absorbent cloth. Tempted to leave it going pale, even though there it does go dark. Okay, maybe I shouldn't. Sometimes I see something happening in the painting and I think, oh, that's going to look great, but then I think, it might just throw the eye out completely. So I'll do as I'm bid, and I shall darken it as I go down. I'll put a bit of an edge up there, and then I'll come down into that area. At least it's warm. It's a little bit of a, I'll put a, oh, just for the fun of it, I'll make that awning a nice bright blue colour. Back there. These ones here are real neutral grey, so I'll get working on those. Once again, I'll go to some clean water at the back here. I'll wet this section so that, and I'm wetting it so that it doesn't get an edge. When I start painting here, I'm ending up with the colours bleeding and blending. It's not forming a sharp line. And that said, colour, which colour? Just for the fun of it, I'll just do something a little bit interesting. I'm going to use one of manganese blue with that neutral grey that I had mixed up before. I'll just see what that looks like. And on this side I'm emphasising those rays of light. I didn't bother doing it on the other side, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. I guess I'll be demonstrating two separate techniques in how to do light rays. Coming down there, I'm not really concentrating. I could be leaving that, beginning to think, I don't know that I should. No, I don't think I will. I can come back over that and take that out instead of leaving it in. Just get a universal blueness on this side, and then it can blend into, that's a lot of fun. Get some nice orange mixed up. And then I'll knock it back with a bit of the grey, purpley colour. And I'll start doing a nice warm darkness over this side. So I'm trying to play around with colours in the grey areas. And now I think I can go wholehearted into the shadows at this stage. I'm going to choose Moon Glow. Sometimes if you tend to stick with one or two colours throughout your whole painting, it looks better in the end because there's a certain uniformity to it. It sort of, it all matches. It's like when you paint, I might do one soon, a whole painting with just two, like one blue, one brown, the whole painting, and it ends up looking fantastic. A little bit like a black and white photograph always looks lovely. So I'm just going to bring this down. I'm using a little bit of dry brush. It's not too wet at this stage. I'm not saying I'm doing that deliberately, it just happens to be what I'm doing, so it might not be perfect in the end. I might have to go over it. So there's interesting lights and darks in those bricks down here. It's always fun to add that sort of, you never think to put lights and darks in that shadow if you weren't looking at a photograph or real life. That's why it's best not to try and make things up in your head. Makeup, you'll get it'll be corny. You won't see the reality of the surprising reality of truth. What's really there. I could come over that later, even darker yet again, and but I like the idea. If you have a colour or a pattern that you like, let it dry, then you can go over it and you'll still see it. It's like those lines, you can still see them because they were dry underneath. If you come over while it's wet, it'll wash away and you'll lose them. So, something you like, let it dry. Something you don't like, go over it straight away. So just coming back into that guy. So I think I'm ready to start adding a bit more detail. I've got the main bones in. I'll come back over here a little bit. Actually, now that I think about it, that's too. I think what I've got here now is a good start, but I think it's going to have to be dried off. I don't think it'll work if I leave it. If I start fiddling over the top of that now, it's just too wet. So at various stages, 2 or 3 times during a watercolour painting, you do have to stop and let something dry or get the hair dryer out, which I will do now, and dry it forcefully. Something I just might do before I have dried that off completely is I'd like to add these lines that I've put on that side, but I haven't put on that side. But here's the technique I can use. Choose where the sun is, which is bang smack in the middle of that white patch, and just put some water over that area. And I'm going to come back in a minute and just wipe that up. So it's wetted, the whole thing's half dry, but then I come back over that, I can actually draw that up. Sorry about that noise. I'll grab some tissue paper, dry off my... So nothing on the brush but water, and I'm just being able to take up that paint. Good fun. End up with a similar effect as if I had left it right from the beginning. Don't want to make an edge, I want to make it fairly subtle. Interesting, there's a couple of extra lines way back there. It's all to do with the lens, glass in the lens doing funny things. There's also, you get whole flares. Now, I'm not a fan of doing a whole flare. A flare is it like a sunspot, circles. If you were doing a graphic work, very funky modern work, you could put those in. But when you're doing a classic watercolour, that's going too far, I think. Sun rays, great. Let's imagine you had sunglasses on where that caused that to happen. Not the spots. Just put a couple up here just to balance that up. Okay. Now, I didn't actually get up and dry that yet. I've let that go. Just wondering if I need to. can do some fun things down here that won't need me to have it dry, and that could be these stones. I turn my brush that way so that the darker part is at the base. The dark down there and not so much the back of it. Oh. Don't know if you can hear that, there's a big helicopter outside. The beauty of these stones is there's actually a warm colour hitting them from the other side, so I'll just have a bit of fun here and see if I can put slightly, I might go pinkish top on them on that side. Okay. See how I go blending it so they touch. Okay, that works too. This side a little bit browner, so I'll stick with the I think that red I've got there is called I've changed it since. I think that's a that's permanent orange, perylene red, which is very orange, and quinacridone magenta. So magenta, okay. That's it. A very little bit of those small bricks are orangey red colour, so I'll just put them down that side. That's another case where reality is interesting and you wouldn't think to do it normally. Put them across here. So just a little bit of a dry brush here and there, and then I'll just pick that out. There's so much white in there that it's very hard to justify putting colour in there much. White, black lines, which I'll go in later. Okay. Now, next stage is more detail at the top here, more detail in the people, and I just have to keep half closing my eyes and seeing as this paint is drying, am I still capturing the right intensity. And I think once I've got these details in, I think it could look, or back in, because they're there now, I just have to go back over them. I think it could be strong enough. So, that said, I will start with, that's quite dry. What I want to do is start with some of the building details on this side. Just not too much, just quite, less is more. Couple of lines here and there to show architectural integrity. Thinking I should stick with my dark blue in the shadow. Now see how much paler this has become since it's dried. So I'm just going to put in the detail there that's on a window. And then there's that. Stick with my blue. I've got brown, ultramarine blue and burnt umber on the brush at the moment. And as I pointed out before, there is a figure walking in or out of that door, but I'll just try and ignore them. Just going to do a little bit of detail here. Very fine line. Got some shadows coming down inside there. I'll put that in. Sort of wipe over there and then come in like that. Can't quite work out the shape, but I'm just doing it because it's there. That one there. That shape came straight down there. I'll just do that while it's still wet. Make corrections while it's wet. Can't see that. I'll add a tiny bit of green to that that grey colour there, just for the sake of variation of colour. I know before I said stick to one colour. I'll tell you to do the dead opposite within the same picture. So I've just added dark shades there, but because I want to bleed it out to the light flare, I'm just quickly wetting that, bringing that light through. Okay. If I was a purist, I'd take that out, but I don't mind it. Artistic license takes over. Just going to throw a bit of blue in with the burnt sienna, burnt umber browns. Just get a bit more detail behind those pylons there. Oops. In, too far in, but it doesn't matter. Another line coming down there. Try and leave a bit of light there, because I think there's a glass or pole or it'll be window, it'll be reflected glass, that's right. Okay, shop front. Interesting shapes, interesting stuff happening, and then leave it at that. I'll come down to the blue again, purple, moon glow, and I'll just cut that back in there. And I'll make it go darker in there. There is a reverse shadow, there is the reverse light happening there, which is quite awkward, but I'll ignore that. I'll load my brush with the blue and the brown again to make the neutral grey colour, and I'll do a little bit of detailing at the back here. Get my brush to behave. Because it's got such a fine tip, I can use it as a little drawing tool and get the finest of fine lines, which I probably couldn't achieve with a fine brush, believe it or not. So come down. When in doubt, just do a dry brush trick, you know, let the brush dry out and just drag it around. Not so much doubt, but when you don't want to be set in a certain, you know, you're not sure that it's absolutely the right line to take, make it a casual line so that it's like as if, oh, I didn't really mean it. I know it's wrong, but that's okay. I just put it there. So I'm just going to pop some of these little windows in. Often with windows you just do the side and the top, and then you come down, leave a gap, and then do the bottom underneath them, because that's the shadow of the sill. So that's a little bit like that, but in this case they're tiny little, I'm so tempted to do these little tiny little dots. I've got to just stop it. It's too far away. I don't want that detail in. If I haven't got the detail on the filigree of that lamp, I definitely should not have detail on that particular building. That said, there's a logo. You can, got to put a logo in. So it's just a squiggle like that. It's a sign. And then I can put a square around it to make sure it looks like a sign. Right. Coming over to this side here, I just noticed there's some lovely little, some of the light has hit the little little awnings of the windows. That looks very pretty, but I don't know if I'll put that in. I might add it later with the gouache. I mean, I can't put it in now, it's too late, but I might pop it in with the gouache as a final thought. But that's it. I've still got this dark grey colour on my brush, so I'm going to just come back in and put in some of these little details for the buildings. Luckily, it's got little dark edges everywhere in itself. It's been painted freshly in lovely little detail emphasis on the picking up the detail of the architecture. So it makes it easy for me to find it. A lot of these might look too dark at this stage, but I'm hoping they will fade down. It's just a matter of experience when you get to, with your own paints, to know what will survive and what will fade. This is where painting in this method using acrylic is really a different world in itself, because what you put down doesn't fade. It stays exactly as you place it. Acrylic paints. So I will be doing that soon. How to do watercolour using acrylic paints. Good fun. And the bottom line is you've just got to have good quality paints as usual. That seems to be the... Oh, that's the other thing I thought I would do, is buy a set of really cheap watercolour paints and work out how to make them work. Because half the world can't afford 80% of the world can't afford Daniel Smith paints. And so therefore it would be great to know that they can still make art. We can still make art with cheaper paints. So moon glow and a little bit of brown. These arched doorways with arched doors hanging off them. That's a bit... I'm just giving a little bit of a hint of those. This one here is a hint of a window. It's got the yellow around it, but I'm not going to be too fussed about that at this stage. Yeah, there's a little wall plaque, possibly a historical scene in low relief up there on the wall. At certain times of the day that would have a lovely shadow on it, but it doesn't have anything at the moment. So I'll just go right up here for these ones, and I think I'll just do some losing here. Haven't had that problem for a little while. I'm just going to quickly paste in some to give a hint of a window there. And a couple of lines underneath. Possibly enough. I have got some interesting interesting lines coming out that come halfway out and then stop. I don't know if they've just been caught by the rays of the sun. I'm assuming they do. They kind of look like they go all the way down the street, but that said, I don't normally do vertical ones. I normally do ones that go across the building. Now, while I'm fiddling around with that with these colours, I'm just going to add some reds to this building, because there are red features there, and then a little bit of, while I'm doing it, orange, just for the fun. But theoretically it should fade, might not, and I kind of don't mind if it doesn't. Sometimes you just need to keep the eye happy, says Bob Ross. Hello Bob. I'm going to put some green on this building, quite strong down that side, and because it's going into the light, I'll wet the brush and dry it off a little bit, and then I'll just let it, I'll just suck it back into the build, sideways. See if I can draw it back in, like that. Did that work? I might do that again. Do it once, see if it works, and then try it again. I might put some more detail in using the dark green. Just enough to show that that's a green building. And even though yellow shouldn't show up in this dark shadow, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow here and see if it does. Yellow plus shadow. Just to make it interesting, a bit of warmth on the edge of it. I'm going to put some on that particular little spot there. Now, it's very unusual to put light colour over dark, but I'm just hoping that shade runs in there. Doesn't matter if it doesn't. I've got some more back here. Bright yellows. See if how they go over that dark colour. They should just soak straight in. But what that does is adds interest to the dull greys that are there. Adds that little bit of colour. Looks bright now. It'll disappear. If it doesn't, I'll eat my hat. Now, I think the next stage here is to come in close and add a little bit of definition to these figures so that they're a little bit more satisfying to look at. At the moment they're very, very loose, and I'd like much rather see them tighten up. And in which case I'll get a smaller brush. Have a nice little Sable. Beautiful little Sable from Holcroft, number 6. It's nice and firm. It's good for doing detail. So I'm going to just jump into a little bit of warmth for this lady's jacket and see if I can override the shadow that I've already put in. Often I'll go through and I might do another picture. I'll do all the colours and then come right over the top with the shadow purples or browns, whichever, or blues. But I often find it dulls it off to such an extent I don't like the picture anymore. It spoils it. So I'm just having a go. This is not something I normally do. I'm reversing and putting the colours over the top of the dull purple. I'll just put his pants. See how much interest I can get out of that. What colour jacket she got on? Oh, it's very grey. She's actually got 2 handbags, so I'll leave those. I'll come back with his blue jacket and brighten that up a bit with thicker paint. Got a little bit around his neck. Got a little bit hanging down. His hand's definitely in his pocket, so I'll put that in. I'm going to mix some orange and burnt sienna for her hair, which is possibly brighter than it needs to be. I'll do some hair behind as well. He's got a bald head, but I did that wrong. One thing, sometimes these narrow little brushes, they spin out of my hand and flick over the page. It used to happen when I was doing very detailed illustrations for children's books, and you'd end up with a disaster on the page. Okay. Too wet for me to add any more detail there. And I'm just trying to think what else I need to do here. I think I can add detail behind on these figures that are in the distance, and I'll do moon glow on some of them. Trying to just do black, the little spots of heads. And I'll come over with I'll definitely be using gouache on this particular picture. Sometimes I like to see if I can do without, but this one I will be doing gouache. Just do a little figure there, walking. Not a little figure, it's a tall person. That grey goes right over to that point, and behind that one there. I'll put a bit more detail under here. Just fiddling. Stop myself sometimes. This girl's bag needs attention. Might even make it a dark red bag at this stage. Oops, too wet. And then add some blue to it so it bleeds in. With his outfit too, I think I might just sharpen up some of the shadows under that jacket. To put some glasses on her, just like a line, and on him. Under his chin. Here, I just want to get the impression that he's looking down. I don't want to do too much detail there. On his neck and on his eyes. Good enough. And the lady under her neck, around the edge of her hair, eyes. I need to define her a bit more, so that means I need to darken behind her rather than draw her in. So I'll just look for an area behind that I can colour up a bit. See if it's a part of that building or something like that. Put her figure in. Cannot for the life of me see how she's walking, so I'm just going to put some jeans on her. See. And put one leg in front of the other, like that. I'll put some shadow on his pants. Especially down this leading leg. In front of his jacket there. He's got a jacket on the other side. His arms are in there. I'm not happy with that brush now. I'm bored with it. I'll go for another a smaller mop. Actually, this wonderful little Chinese brush. On my website, what I might do is photograph, I'll line the brushes up and I'll just say what they are. so you can see what they look like, and that way if you come across them in a shop you can go, oh, there's that type of brush that video lady uses. I'm just getting really darks, whatever's coming to the brush here. There's people here that I wouldn't mind putting in the jacket. Long jacket, pants, stepping out. There's another lady there with a leg going like that. There's a lady, a figure right behind my main protagonist, and she's got a shoulder bag on, which I might add later, but I might not. When I say later, it's getting close to finishing this painting. I'm a bit annoyed I did that, now that I'm looking at that. Sometimes you can look at something and go, at the time you do it with gay abandon, and then later on you go, what the heck? Because it's dark, I'm thinking I might be able to get rid of it. And I'll show you how to get rid of things that you don't like. So I'm going to wet it. When I say dark, it's not a staining colour, it's a sitting on the surface colour. There might be a little bit of a stain underneath, but on the whole I can take it off the surface with water. I'll just take that down. Yeah, that's much better. See that? I'm just losing that dark, contrasty lines that shouldn't be back there. Because the whole idea is that's out of focus. And that, the lamp can be in focus, but the area behind should be out of focus, much faster. So wetness on top of that is just going to do the right job. Okay. So what I've done, using the gouache, I've just done a little bit of highlighting around the tops of the heads, as you can see there, there, a little bit here. I've scrumbled in here a little bit to give a bit of the flare coming down. I won't overdo it, I won't go all the way, but as it is, I've given it a fair bit of a go. Guy's coat goes back. Some of the arms come over like this. Okay. I could, if I wanted to, reverse pattern the this is fun, to reverse the pattern of the bricks here and add specks of white that I know are in there over the top of that colour that I've put down. So that's always good fun. That's where it starts losing its watercolour and starts becoming a poster colour painting, but never mind. Some of these can be made up, so that's it. I shall try and stop my hand doing any more to this painting. Just a couple of little areas I'd like to attend to finish off. Thought I was finished, but now I've gone away and come back again. I can see I'd love to add this cobblestone effect over here into the shadow. So I'm going to use a wet brush and water, that's it, and just pick out a couple of lines here and there of the cobbles. And here, every now and then, there's a little lightning, like the light hits one of the bricks in this area. I think my challenge is going to be to make the bricks small, keep them small and square. This brush is a bit too big for that. I'll just see if I can use the corner of the brush. So just by having it wet is lightening enough. I'll just leave a patch and do a bit more with the back there. They're not really in a brick pattern, they're more like square onto each other, so it's a little bit different. I'll do a couple of vertical, when I say vertical lines, I mean lines that are straight away from the viewer. And this adds interest to the shadow areas. Same with here. I want to define this area a bit more. To make it different, make it obviously different, that there's a different pattern. Suddenly there's a different pattern. It is quite sudden. There's a divider and that's it. It's not gradual. So I just put, and then I do it in the positive way and then I do it in the negative way. And one of the beauties of this is that it keeps the floor flat in front. Sometimes you can have a bit of a curve, and in this case I think I am curving a little bit in some lines to make it look like there's a bulge in the ground, and I want to just reinforce the fact that it's not, there's nothing there. Just as it is. A little bit pinker. The colour here is quite accurate. Oh, I've signed the painting too. That's how much I sat back and looked at it and thought, hello, just need to add a bit more in here to this area. Now I'm doing crosses there and I really should be picking out shapes. So now that I've got the crosses in, and I keep tapping my brush into the water. And it's the randomness here that you need to be aware of, that you don't start getting into a pattern and doing every second one or doing them diagonally. You do two, then you do one, and then you do three, and then you do none. Like you really have to keep it random. Touching in a little bit of colour there on his leg because I think I've misinterpreted that line. And down here. This is where I can start to make errors too. It's very dangerous to be coming back in. Got to control yourself. Just do the job you thought you should be doing. Don't go silly. As these bricks get to the front here, I can make them bigger. They're already big over that side, but I can make these bigger. And you know what, I might just, the other thing I thought I might do, just blend some of these together, because they're beginning to look a little bit too drawn in rather than painted. And drawn means just outlines for me. Everyone's got a different interpretation of what that can mean. The gouache is beginning to run there, but I don't mind. It's fun. Love gouache. And I think that's about it. I just wanted to show you that one little bit. Just putting the pavers into the shadows. So if you had a big yard, if you had a large foyer, like a yard foyer. What am I talking about? Got a large area of cobblestones in a painting. A square, a town square, that's what I'm thinking of. You could have some fun with the cobbles. And of course these ones were bigger, so they're a different sort of feel about them. It's a modern day person putting cobblestones in, they just, oh, I'll just do one every now and then. I won't do 24 every yard. These ones here I'll blend. I've gone a bit loose on those shadows there, so I'll just give them a bit of a blend the top end. In fact, I should be blending them the other way. Blend the bottom end. That's where the shadow is. And leave the light end sharp. That's it, I'm just going nuts here. In fact, the whole area there is a little bit shaded, so I might just return that to shade by doing that. And I might even darken this area here. I'll get a round brush for that because it needs to be fairly loose. So blue, French ultramarine blue in the brown to give me a neutral tint. One cancels out the other. A little bit more blue makes it blacker in my mind. So I'll bring that down. This will fade as well, even though it's on top of the others. Give it the beautiful randomness that I love. How about this? Tissues. Back into that. Tissues work lots of places, not just in cloud, when you're trying to do clouds with tissue, like pick out of the blue. So that's it. Oh, it's definitely finished now. So that's it, definitely finished now, except I'm going to keep doing that. Done. And I apologise to that lady because she's turned into a bloke. And interestingly enough, I could, if I wanted to, I could make these lines at the front here. Some of them are white. So some are dark. So what I'll do is run across the eye across like this. In the dark areas I'll do that. Then I'll do that. And then I'll get some gouache out and just a very pale version of the white, not a real strong one, in the light areas. I'll whiten that down a little bit. Oh, sorry, in the dark areas I might just do a little touch of where I think the Just a little bit of a hint of mortar that they've patched, or it's got some white sand fallen into the cracks. That look about it. And I'll take it out to the side there a bit too. And I'll put some on the front edges of these because the light's catching them. A bit thick there. Just for the fun of it, I'll take a couple in there too. Okay. Well, thank you very much for watching. I had a lot of fun doing this. It's a Prague scene, so I'll probably call it something like Sunday afternoon in Prague, I think might be good. And the original photograph is available for download from my website, shirleypeters.com. There'll be a link below. So all the details below are of my paints that I use. And if you like this video, could you subscribe to it? That'd be great. And hit the like button, and you'll be notified when I get new videos up. So thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoy your painting as well. Bye for now.